The world had never been quieter. Azrael stood at the edge of a desolate highway, somewhere in the American Southwest, where the asphalt shimmered under the relentless desert sun. His form was neither fully corporeal nor entirely ethereal, a presence that existed in the space between breath and stillness, between the last heartbeat and the first silence. He had walked this earth for millennia, unseen by mortal eyes unless he chose otherwise. His purpose was singular, unchanging, absolute, to guide souls from the realm of the living into the vastness beyond. He did not judge. He did not punish. He simply arrived. But something had changed. For the first time in ages beyond counting, Azrael felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. It began 3 weeks ago. Or was it 3 months? Time moved differently for beings like him. He had been summoned to a small town in Nebraska, where an elderly woman named Margaret was meant to pass peacefully in her sleep. Azrael had appeared at her bedside at precisely 3:47 a.m., as ordained by the invisible clock that governed all endings. But when he reached for her soul, there was nothing. Not death, not life, just absence. Margaret's body remained in the bed, chest rising and falling in shallow breaths, but her essence, the luminous thread that connected every living being to the tapestry of existence, had vanished without trace. It was as if someone had reached into the fabric of reality and simply plucked her out. Azrael had stood there for hours, his ancient mind struggling to comprehend the impossible. In all his existence, spanning back to before humans had even learned to speak, he had never witnessed such a thing. And then it happened again. A car accident on Interstate 40. A young man named David, 23 years old, whose destiny thread had clearly marked this moment as his last. Azrael arrived as the paramedics worked frantically, as David's girlfriend screamed his name, as the New Mexico sun beat down on the twisted metal and shattered glass. But again, nothing. The body was there, the blood, the trauma, but the soul gone. Now, standing on this empty highway with the wind carrying dust devils across the barren landscape, Azrael felt the weight of something he couldn't name. If he had been human, he might have called it dread. He closed his eyes, not that he needed them to see, and extended his consciousness across the vast network of life and death that spanned the globe. Billions of threads, each one representing a human life, each one pulsing with the rhythm of existence, some bright and strong, others flickering like candles in a storm. And there, scattered across the tapestry like tears in ancient fabric, he saw them, the voids. 17 souls missing, 17 humans whose threads had been severed not by death, but by something else entirely. "This isn't right," Azrael whispered to the desert wind, his voice carrying the weight of eons. "This has never happened before." He had tried to report this to the higher council, the assembly of celestial beings who maintained the cosmic order. But his calls had gone unanswered. The channels that had always been open, that had always responded with immediate clarity, now met him with only silence. It was as if he had been cut off or abandoned. Azrael opened his eyes and looked down at his hands. To mortal eyes, they would appear as shadows, as darkness given shape. But he saw them as they truly were, ancient, powerful, and now trembling with something that felt disturbingly close to fear. A sound broke through his contemplation, the rumble of an approaching vehicle. Azrael turned his head and watched as an old pickup truck appeared on the horizon, growing larger as it approached. The driver was a man in his 50s, weathered face partially obscured by a baseball cap, country music playing faintly from the radio. Without thinking, Azrael reached out with his senses and touched the man's destiny thread. It was intact, strong. The man had years left, decades perhaps, if he quit smoking and started taking better care of his heart. Relief washed over Azrael, brief and sharp. At least the world hadn't completely broken. At least death still functioned as it should for most. But that relief was short-lived. As the truck passed him, driving through his form as if he were nothing more than a heat mirage, Azrael sensed something else, a presence. Distant but unmistakable, another consciousness that didn't belong to the natural order of things. Someone was watching. Azrael spun around, his form solidifying into something more tangible, more present. The desert stretched empty in all directions, nothing but sand and scrub brush and the skeletal remains of long-dead cacti. But he knew what he had felt. "Show yourself," he commanded, his voice resonating with authority that had made even demons tremble. Silence. Then, carried on the wind, so faint he almost missed it, laughter. Not the joyful laughter of the living, but something colder. Something that spoke of ancient malice and carefully laid plans. Azrael's form flickered as rage, another emotion he rarely experienced, surged through him. "Show yourself." The laughter faded, replaced by a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The old order is ending, Harvester. Your time is almost done." And then, nothing. Azrael stood alone on the highway, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. For the first time in his infinite existence, he understood what humans meant when they spoke of being afraid. Something was hunting souls. Something was dismantling the very structure of life and death, and whatever it was, it knew he was coming. He needed answers. He needed to understand what force could be powerful enough to steal souls from under his watch, to silence the higher council, to threaten the balance that had existed since the dawn of creation. And there was only one place those answers might exist, among the humans themselves. Azrael had walked the earth countless times, but always as an observer, a guide, a silent presence at the moment of transition. He had never truly immersed himself in the human world, never spoken to them, never tried to understand their complex, messy, beautiful existence beyond the final moment. But now, he had no choice. He would have to become one of them, walk among them, learn their ways, and somehow find the source of this corruption before the entire tapestry of existence unraveled. As the last light of day faded and stars began to pierce the darkening sky, Azrael made his decision. He would go to the cities where humans gathered in their millions. He would take a form they could see, a voice they could hear. He would become what he had never been before, visible. The angel of death took his first step forward as a being of flesh and shadow, heading east toward the distant glow of civilization. Behind him, the desert wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of something burning. Not wood or oil, but something far older and far more dangerous. The scent of destiny itself, beginning to burn away. 3 days later, Azrael found himself in Chicago. The city assaulted his senses in ways he had never experienced. As an ethereal being, he had always existed above the noise, beyond the chaos. But now, wearing a physical form he had carefully crafted to appear human, a man in his mid-30s with dark hair and unremarkable features, he was drowning in it. The sound of traffic was deafening. The smell of exhaust and street food and humanity packed together was overwhelming. And the sheer number of destiny threads, all pulsing and interweaving in this dense urban space, created a tapestry so complex it made his borrowed eyes water. He had chosen Chicago deliberately. 2 of the missing souls had last been seen here, their threads disappearing within days of each other. If there was a pattern, a connection, this city might hold the key. Azrael stood on the corner of State and Madison, watching the flow of humanity around him. They moved with such purpose, such urgency, completely unaware that death walked among them. Not as the harvester they would one day meet, but as something far stranger, an imposter trying to understand their world. "Spare some change?" The voice came from his left. Azrael turned to see a homeless man sitting against a building, cardboard sign propped against his knees. The man's destiny thread was weak, flickering, perhaps another year, maybe less. Liver failure, most likely, combined with exposure and malnutrition. I... Azrael realized he didn't have currency. He hadn't thought to acquire it. I don't have any. The man shrugged. Story of my life, brother. He squinted up at Azrael. You new to the streets? You got that lost look. I'm looking for someone. Ain't we all? The man coughed, deep and rattling. Who you looking for? Azrael hesitated. How did one explain searching for souls that had been stolen from the fabric of reality? People who have disappeared, vanished without explanation. The homeless man's expression changed subtly. You a cop? No. PI? No, just someone trying to understand what's happening. The man studied him for a long moment, then seemed to reach some internal decision. There's been talk down at the shelter among those of us who pay attention. People going missing, but not the usual way. Not running off or getting killed or shipped to the hospital, just gone, like they never existed. Azrael felt a chill run through his borrowed flesh. Tell me more. There was this woman, Sarah, sweet lady, used to hand out sandwiches every Tuesday. One night about a month ago, she was there talking to my friend Marcus about getting him into a program. Next second, Marcus looks away for a moment, looks back, and she's gone. Not walked away, gone. Her sandwich was still sitting there, cup of coffee still steaming, like she'd been erased. Your friend Marcus, where can I find him? The homeless man's face fell. That's the thing. Marcus went looking for answers, asking around about Sarah. Week later, same thing happened to him. Gone. Just gone. Azrael's mind raced. A pattern, not random disappearances across the country, but clusters, connections. Have there been others? Maybe. Hard to say. People on the streets, we disappear all the time and nobody notices. But yeah, there's been whispers. Folks who were there one minute and just weren't the next. Before Azrael could respond, he felt it. A disturbance in the threads around him. A ripple, like a stone dropped into still water. He spun around, scanning the crowd. There, across the street, a woman in a business suit, maybe 30 years old, talking on her phone as she waited for the light to change. Her destiny thread was pulsing normally, steady and strong, indicating decades of life ahead. And then, as Azrael watched in horror, it simply stopped. Not snapped, not severed. It just ceased to exist. The woman continued talking for a moment, unaware. Then her voice faded mid-sentence. Her body remained standing, phone still pressed to her ear, but her eyes went blank. Empty. No, Azrael breathed, pushing through the crowd. No, not again! He reached the woman just as she collapsed. People around them gasped, stepped back, pulled out their phones. Someone shouted to call 911, but Azrael knelt beside her and knew the truth that no doctor would find. She wasn't sick or injured. She was hollow. A body without a soul, maintained by biology, but stripped of everything that made her human. Sir, please step back. Let me help. A young man pushed forward, medical student by the look of his backpack. He began checking for a pulse, for breathing. She's alive but unresponsive. Catatonic, maybe. Did anyone see what happened? Azrael stood slowly, backing away from the growing crowd. He had to follow the trail while it was fresh. He closed his eyes and reached out with his senses, searching for where the thread had gone. There, north, moving fast. He turned and ran, his borrowed body moving with inhuman speed. People shouted in surprise as he pushed past them, but he didn't care. For the first time, he had a chance to catch whoever or whatever was doing this. The trail led him through alleys and side streets across a parking lot into an abandoned industrial building near the river. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows through broken windows. The place reeked of decay and neglect. And something else. Something that made Azrael's borrowed flesh crawl with recognition. Angelic presence, but corrupted, twisted. Wrong. I was wondering when you'd find me, a voice echoed through the empty space. Male, smooth, carrying an accent that predated most human languages. The great Azrael, stumbling around in borrowed meat, playing detective. A figure stepped from the shadows at the far end of the building. At first glance, he appeared human, tall, well-dressed, handsome in a way that didn't quite feel natural. But Azrael saw through the glamour immediately. Another angel. Or rather, something that had once been an angel. Sariel, Azrael said, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. You fell 3,000 years ago. They said you were destroyed. Sariel smiled, and it was a terrible thing to witness. Destroyed? No, brother. Banished, forgotten, left to wander the void while you all continued your precious duties. He spread his arms. But I found something in that darkness. Something that showed me the truth. What truth? That you could steal souls, disrupt the natural order. Natural order? Sariel laughed. There's nothing natural about it. We're slaves, Azrael. Servants to a system that grinds on eternally, never changing, never evolving. You collect souls, you deliver them, you never question why. Don't you ever wonder what it's all for? It's not my place to question. I serve. You serve? Sariel's voice dripped with contempt. You bow. You obey. But me, I learned something in the void. I learned that souls are power. Pure, raw, infinite power. And if I collect enough of them, if I take them before you can, I can remake the rules. I can become what we were always meant to be. Gods, Azrael said quietly. You want to become a god. Not a god, the god. The only one that matters. Sariel's form began to shift, the human disguise melting away to reveal something vast and terrible. Wings of shadow, eyes like burning coals. And you, old friend, are too late to stop me. I already have 19 souls. I need only 100 more, and then the transformation will be complete. Azrael felt rage building in his core, hot and pure. I won't let you. You can't stop me. Sariel raised his hand, and suddenly the air filled with threads, not destiny threads, but stolen ones, the essences of those 19 souls, writhing like serpents. You're weakened, cut off from the host. The council won't answer you because I've made sure they can't. This building, this entire city block, exists in a pocket dimension of my creation. You walked right into my trap. The walls began to shimmer and shift. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp. Azrael realized with horror that Sariel was right. He had been isolated, cut off from his connection to the divine network. Why tell me this? Azrael demanded. Why not just take my power too? Sariel's smile widened. Because you're not just another angel, Azrael. You're the angel of death. Your essence is special. If I consume you, if I take your power, I won't need 100 souls. I'll need only 50. You're the shortcut to my ascension. Then come and take it, Azrael said, his form beginning to shift as well, shadows gathering around him like a cloak. But I promise you, brother, I won't go quietly. Sariel laughed, a sound like breaking glass. I was hoping you'd say that. The fallen angel surged forward, and Azrael met him in the center of that twisted pocket of reality, two ancient beings clashing in a battle that would determine the fate of countless souls. And somewhere in the distance, the invisible clock of the world continued its relentless ticking, marking time that was running out faster than anyone knew. The battle shook the foundations of reality itself. Azrael and Sariel collided with the force of colliding stars, their true forms erupting from the fragile human shells they'd worn. The abandoned building around them cracked and groaned, walls bending at impossible angles, as the pocket dimension Sariel had created struggled to contain their power. Azrael struck first, his essence coalescing into blades of pure oblivion, the same force he used to sever the threads between body and soul. But Sariel was ready, countering with chains forged from the stolen souls themselves, their anguished whispers filling the air. You feel it, don't you? Sariel taunted as they circled each other. Their pain, their confusion, they're trapped between states, neither alive nor truly dead. And it's exquisite. You've become a monster, Azrael replied, his voice resonating with the weight of eons. These were innocent people. They had lives, families, dreams. And now they have purpose. Azrael lashed out with the soul chains, wrapping them around Azrael's form. The stolen essences burned like acid, their torment seeping into him. A greater purpose than their mundane existences ever provided. They'll be part of something magnificent. Azrael roared, his power exploding outward, shattering the chains. The stolen souls scattered like startled birds, their threads floating in the distorted air. For a brief moment he felt their individual agonies. Sarah, the woman who fed the homeless. Marcus, who died searching for her. David from the highway. Margaret from Nebraska. 19 voices crying out for release. "I will free them," Azrael promised, gathering his strength for another assault. "And I will end you." But as he moved forward, something stopped him. A presence approaching from outside the pocket dimension. No, multiple presences, human presences. Azrael felt it too, his expression shifting to one of cruel amusement. Ah, perfect timing. More lambs for the slaughter. The distorted walls of the building suddenly stabilized. And through a doorway that shouldn't exist stepped 3 figures, a woman in her 40s wearing a priest's collar, a young man covered in protective tattoos, and an elderly person whose gender was ambiguous, carrying a walking stick covered in carved symbols. "The binding is broken," the elderly one announced, their voice strong despite their apparent age. "The angel is freed from your trap, fallen one." Azrael's eyes narrowed. "Keepers, I should have known. You've been dying out for centuries. I thought the last of you perished in Prague." "We endure," the priest said, stepping forward, "as we always have. When angels fall, when the divine order breaks, we are called to restore it." Azrael looked between them, confusion mixing with his rage. "What are you?" "The Order of the Veil," the young man explained, his tattooed hands already moving in complex patterns. "Humans who've been entrusted with knowledge of the celestial realm. We're not powerful enough to fight angels directly, but we can level the playing field." The elderly keeper struck their staff against the ground, and suddenly the pocket dimension shattered like glass. Reality rushed back in. The real building, the real Chicago, the real world beyond. Azrael felt his connection to the divine network snap back into place, power flooding through him. But Azrael felt it too. "Clever," he hissed, "but futile. I still have the souls. I still have the power. And now I have witnesses to destroy." He moved with terrifying speed, aiming for the priest, but Azrael was faster, interposing himself between the fallen angel and the humans. The impact of their collision sent shockwaves through the building, bringing down part of the ceiling. "Run!" Azrael commanded the keepers. "I can handle him now." "No!" the young man shouted back. "We need to perform the severance rite. It's the only way to free the stolen souls." "There's no time!" The building was collapsing around them, steel beams groaning, concrete crumbling. "If you die here, those souls remain trapped forever." The priest grabbed Azrael's arm, a bold move, touching death itself. "Then we do it now, together." Emily, the sanctified salt, Marcus, the binding words. They moved with practiced precision, spreading a circle of white salt around the area where the stolen souls floated. The elderly keeper, Emily apparently, began chanting in a language that predated Sumerian. The young man, Marcus, sharing a name with one of the stolen, traced symbols in the air that glowed with borrowed divine light. And Azrael, seeing what they were attempting, went mad with rage. "No!" He abandoned his attack on Azrael, turning his full fury on the keepers. "You will not take what is mine!" Azrael barely managed to intercept him, grappling with the fallen angel as the humans completed their ritual. The air inside the salt circle began to shimmer, and one by one, the stolen souls started to solidify, taking on ghostly forms. "It's working!" the priest shouted. "Azrael, when I give the word, you have to claim them, fulfill your duty, send them to their proper rest." "If he does that," Azrael snarled, still struggling in Azrael's grip, "they'll be lost. Those souls are mine by right of conquest." "They were never yours." Azrael replied, his voice cold as the void between stars, and they never will be. The 19 souls were fully manifested now, floating in the salt circle, their forms confused and frightened. They looked at Azrael with recognition, not of his physical form, but of what he represented, the end they should have found, the peace they'd been denied. "Please," whispered the soul of Sarah, "please, it hurts. Everything hurts. I just want to sleep." Azrael felt something crack inside his eternal heart. "Now!" he called to the priest. "Do it! Release them!" Azrael extended his consciousness, reaching for the 19 souls with the gentleness of a parent gathering children. His touch was cool, final, absolute. One by one they relaxed into his embrace, their anguish fading, their forms dissolving into light. "I'm sorry," he whispered to each one. "I'm sorry you were taken. I'm sorry you suffered. But now you can rest." As the last soul faded, released into the proper channels of death, Azrael screamed. The sound was inhuman, full of rage and loss, and something that might have been grief. His power fluctuated wildly, the stolen souls having been the foundation of his strength. "You've destroyed everything," he howled. "Months of work, decades of planning. I was so close." "You were never close," Azrael said quietly, standing between the fallen angel and the exhausted keepers. "You can steal souls, corrupt them, torture them, but you can never truly possess them. Death is not about ownership. It's about transition, completion, peace." Azrael's form was destabilizing, his power unraveling without the stolen souls to anchor it. "This isn't over, brother. There are more like me, others who've learned what I learned in the void. The old order is dying whether you accept it or not. Then I'll face them as I faced you." Azrael's form grew larger, more terrible, becoming what he truly was beneath all the facades. "I am Azrael. I am the last breath, the final heartbeat, the door between worlds, and I do not fail." He reached out with his power, not to kill Azrael. He couldn't kill another angel, but to do something almost worse. He began to strip away the fallen angel's accumulated power, his stolen knowledge, everything he'd gained in his millennia of rebellion. Azrael fought desperately, but weakened without the souls, he couldn't resist. Layer by layer, power drained away, until all that remained was a diminished thing, barely more than a shadow. "The void awaits you again, brother," Azrael said without triumph or malice. "Perhaps next time you'll learn the proper lessons." With a final gesture, he banished Azrael back to the darkness between dimensions, sealing the way behind him. The building groaned, finally giving up its fight against collapse. "We need to leave," Emily shouted. "The structural damage is too severe." They ran together, an ancient angel in human form and 3 mortal keepers, bursting out onto the Chicago street just as the building imploded behind them. Dust and debris filled the air, sirens already wailing in the distance. Azrael turned to the keepers, seeing them clearly for the first time. They were exhausted, sweating, the young man bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but they were alive. "Thank you," he said simply. The priest smiled wearily. "We've waited 3 generations for a chance to help you, Lord Azrael. The Order has always known this day would come." "How long have you known? About Azrael? About the stolen souls?" "We didn't know it was Azrael specifically," Emily admitted, leaning heavily on their staff. "But we've tracked disturbances in the death patterns for months. When someone as powerful as a fallen angel starts stealing souls, it leaves ripples. We followed those ripples here. And now?" Azrael asked. "Azrael said there were others, more fallen angels learning to steal souls." The 3 keepers exchanged glances. Finally, Marcus spoke. He wasn't lying. "We've detected at least 3 other disturbance patterns. 1 in South America, 1 in Eastern Europe, and 1... "Where?" Azrael demanded. "In the Vatican," the priest said quietly. "Right in the heart of the church itself." Azrael closed his eyes, the weight of this knowledge pressing down on him. If fallen angels were learning to harvest souls, if they were coordinating, if they had managed to infiltrate even the most holy sites of human faith, the threat was far greater than he'd imagined. "I need to warn the higher council," he said. "They need to know." "They already know," Emily interrupted. "Why do you think they stopped answering your calls? This goes deeper than you realize, Azrael. There are forces at work in the celestial realm itself, forces that want the old order to fall. Then who can I trust?" The priest stepped forward and placed her hand over his chest, where a human heart beat with borrowed life. "Us, the keepers, and yourself. That has to be enough." As police cars and fire trucks screamed toward the collapsed building, as crowds gathered and chaos unfolded around them, Azrael made a decision. He would not return to his ethereal duties. Not yet. He would remain in this form, remain among humanity, and hunt down every fallen angel who dared to steal what was meant to be his sacred charge. "I'll need your help," he told the keepers. "You have it," they replied in unison. "Then we start with South America. If there's another Sariel out there, another angel harvesting souls, we end them before they can ascend." The young Marcus grinned despite his exhaustion. "Finally, I thought you'd never ask." And so, as sirens filled the Chicago night and the stars wheeled overhead in their eternal dance, the angel of death began a new chapter of his infinite existence, no longer just a harvester of souls, but their protector, their champion, their last whisper of hope against the darkness. The flight to Sao Paulo took 14 hours. Azrael sat in economy class. The keepers had insisted on conserving their limited resources, sandwiched between a businessman who snored and a young mother with a crying infant. In his eons of existence, he had never experienced anything quite so mundane, so utterly human. The baby's cries were particularly fascinating. Each wail carried such urgency, such absolute conviction that this moment of discomfort was the worst thing that could ever happen. Azrael found himself oddly comforted by it. After witnessing souls being torn from their proper paths, after battling a fallen angel drunk on stolen power, there was something beautifully honest about an infant's simple distress. "First time flying?" the mother asked, noticing his intense focus on her child. Azrael considered the question. In his true form, he had traversed dimensions, walked between moments of time, crossed distances that would take light years to measure. But in this borrowed flesh, "Yes," he answered simply. She smiled sympathetically. "It gets easier. The baby, Luna, she's actually doing better this flight. Last time she screamed for 6 straight hours." She bounced the infant gently. "Sometimes you just have to accept that you can't control everything, you know. Just ride it out." Azrael thought about that as the plane descended through clouds toward Brazil. "Accept that you can't control everything." For an angel whose entire purpose was to control the moment of death, to ensure every soul transitioned exactly when and how they were supposed to, the concept was almost revolutionary. Marcus met him at the airport, looking grave. The young keeper had flown ahead 2 days earlier to scout the situation. "It's worse than we thought," he said without preamble. 43 souls missing in the past 2 months, all from favelas, all poor, all people the world wouldn't miss. "I would miss them," Azrael replied quietly. "Every soul matters." They took a taxi into the city, the driver navigating Sao Paulo's chaotic traffic with practiced ease. Azrael stared out the window at the sprawling metropolis. 20 million people, their destiny threads creating a tapestry so dense and complex it made his borrowed eyes ache. And there, like holes burned in fabric, he saw the voids, the places where souls should have been, but weren't. 43 absences in the great tapestry, each one a wound that wouldn't heal until those souls were recovered or released. "The priest, what was her name?" Azrael asked. "Father Catherine. She's already in position with Emily. They've identified the likely location." "And?" Marcus's jaw tightened. Cathedral of São Paulo, one of the largest neo-Gothic churches in the world. 5,000 people worship there every Sunday. A fallen angel hiding in a church. The audacity is almost admirable. Such or strategic. Think about it. Where better to harvest souls than a place people go specifically to contemplate death and the afterlife? Where better to hide in plain sight than among those who claim to serve the divine? They met Father Catherine and Emily in a cafe 3 blocks from the cathedral. Both looked exhausted, Emily's hands shaking slightly as they sipped strong Brazilian coffee. "Tell me everything," Azrael commanded, taking a seat that gave him clear view of the cathedral's spires in the distance. Father Catherine pulled out a tablet, showing him photographs and documents. The pattern started 8 weeks ago. The cathedral has a ministry that serves the favelas, food distribution, medical care, education, good work, genuine charity. But then people started disappearing. Not everyone, very specific people. What made them specific? They were all dying, Emily said quietly. Cancer, AIDS, tuberculosis, advanced age. People who were months or weeks from natural death. Someone was targeting them deliberately. Azrael felt cold understanding wash over him. Efficient. Take souls that are close to transition anyway, and fewer people question the disappearance. A homeless man dying of cancer goes missing. The system assumes he died somewhere unreported. Exactly. We only noticed because of the void signatures. Normal humans can't detect them, but they leave traces in the spiritual fabric that the Order has learned to read. Marcus leaned forward. We've identified the likely culprit. New priest, transferred here 3 months ago, calls himself Father Miguel. Not his real name, obviously not. But he's beloved, charismatic, brings in huge donations. The Archbishop thinks he's a gift from God. Catherine's expression was bitter. If we're right, he's the opposite. Show me. They pulled up a photograph on the tablet. A man in his 50s, handsome with kind eyes and a gentle smile. To normal humans, he would appear trustworthy, compassionate. But Azrael saw through the glamour immediately. Ramiel, he breathed, the thunder of God. The 3 keepers exchanged alarmed glances. You know him? Marcus asked. We fought together in the War of the Firmament before humans had even learned to make fire. He was righteous then, fierce, absolutely convinced of the divine order. Azrael stared at the photograph. If he's fallen, if he's been corrupted like Sariel, then this is bigger than we thought, Emily finished. If angels as powerful as Ramiel are turning, coordinating, it's not a series of isolated incidents. It's a conspiracy. Azrael stood abruptly. We go tonight, during evening mass, when the cathedral is full. He won't risk exposing himself with so many witnesses. Are you sure about that? Father Catherine asked. If he's as powerful as you say, couldn't he just kill everyone who sees? He could. But that would alert the higher council, other angels, forces even he can't combat alone. No, he needs to maintain his disguise, which means he's vulnerable. They spent the afternoon preparing. Marcus painted protective sigils on his skin with blessed ink. Emily prepared the sanctified salt and ancient binding tools. Father Catherine heard confessions at a nearby church, not because it was necessary for the mission, but because some of her parishioners needed her, and she refused to let her divine duties supersede her human ones. Azrael found himself alone for an hour, sitting in a small park near the cathedral, watching children play soccer while their parents watched and laughed. Life in all its messy, complicated glory unfolding around him. A girl, maybe 7 years old, kicked her ball too hard and sent it rolling toward him. She ran over, shy but determined, and Azrael picked it up and handed it to her. Obrigada, she said softly. You're welcome. She lingered, studying him with the unnerving directness of children. You look sad. Are you sad? Azrael considered lying, but something about her earnest concern made him honest. I'm worried. I have to do something difficult tonight, and I'm not sure I'm strong enough. My mama says when she's scared, she holds my hand and it makes her braver. The girl held out her small hand. You can hold my hand if you want. This child, this beautiful, fragile human child, offering comfort to death itself. Azrael felt something he'd never experienced, tears forming in his borrowed eyes. He gently took her hand, held it for a moment, felt her pulse beating strong and steady. "Thank you," he said. "You've made me braver." She beamed, then ran back to her friends. Azrael watched her go, her destiny thread bright and strong, stretching out into a long life full of joy and sorrow and everything in between, a life he would protect, that he would die to protect if death were possible for him. When evening came, they approached the cathedral as Mass began. The building was magnificent, soaring Gothic arches, stained glass windows depicting scenes of martyrdom and redemption, the sound of hundreds of voices raised in hymn. And there at the altar, conducting the service, was Ramiel wearing the face of Father Miguel. Azrael felt his power stirring, recognizing another angel even through the layers of human disguise. But he held back, waiting. They had to catch him in the act, had to prove what he was doing before they could strike. The Mass proceeded normally. Prayers, readings, communion. Azrael sat in a pew near the back. The three keepers scattered throughout the congregation, watching, waiting. Then during the final blessing, Ramiel's eyes swept the crowd and landed directly on Azrael and smiled. "Before we depart tonight," Ramiel's voice boomed through the cathedral, amplified by both technology and divine power. "I have a special announcement. We have a visitor among us, a very special visitor. Would our brother in the back row please stand?" Every head turned toward Azrael. He stood slowly, feeling the trap close around him. "This man," Ramiel continued, his voice dripping with false warmth, "has traveled a long way to be here, all the way from the heavenly realms, in fact. Tell me, brother, what brings the angel of death to my humble cathedral?" Gasps and confused murmurs rippled through the congregation. Some people laughed nervously, assuming this was some kind of theatrical performance, but others, those with the sight, those sensitive to spiritual truth, felt the reality of what was being said. "You've been stealing souls," Azrael said simply, his voice carrying despite the cathedral's acoustics. "I'm here to stop you." Ramiel's smile widened. "Stealing? Such an ugly word. I prefer to think of it as early withdrawal. Taking what's owed before the natural term ends. And why shouldn't I? I've spent millennia in service to an absent God, ferrying souls to a paradise no one can prove exists. Don't I deserve compensation? You deserve judgment." "Then judge me, brother." Ramiel spread his arms wide, his human disguise beginning to crack, revealing glimpses of his true form beneath. "But understand this, if you fight me here, now, with all these witnesses, you'll expose everything. The veil between mortal and divine will tear. These people will see things that will break their minds. Is that what you want?" He was right, and he knew it. If they fought here, the psychic backlash alone would traumatize or kill dozens of people. The revelation of angels walking among them, stealing souls, would shatter the foundations of human faith worldwide. "I see you understand the dilemma," Ramiel purred. "So here's my offer. Leave now. Forget you ever found me, and I'll be content with the souls I've already taken. 43 is a nice round number. I can work with that. And if I refuse, then I take everyone in this cathedral right now, all 732 souls present, including your 3 keeper friends. I'll ascend to power on a mountain of the faithful's anguish, and there will be nothing you can do to stop me." The congregation was starting to panic now, people standing, moving toward exits. But the doors had sealed themselves, Ramiel's power, locking everyone inside. Father Catherine caught Azrael's eye and shook her head slightly. "Don't do it. Don't sacrifice all these people." But Emily, from across the cathedral, nodded firmly. "Do what you must. We chose this path. And Marcus, youngest of the keepers, simply smiled and made a gesture that Azrael recognized, the sign of acceptance used by martyrs through the ages. These humans, these fragile, temporary, impossibly brave humans, were willing to die to stop what Ramiel had become. How could Azrael do any less? "Your offer," he said clearly, "is refused." Ramiel's expression shifted from confidence to rage. "Then you've killed them all?" "No," Azrael replied, his form beginning to shift, the human disguise burning away. "You have, and that will be your final sin." His true form erupted into the cathedral, wings of shadow, eyes like distant stars, a presence that filled the vast space with the inevitability of endings. People screamed, fell to their knees, covered their eyes from the sight of genuine divine terror. And Ramiel, seeing no other choice, dropped his own disguise. Two angels, one of death and one of thunder, faced each other in a cathedral full of innocent souls as the invisible clock of the world ticked toward midnight. The final battle had begun. The air itself screamed when two angels revealed their true forms in the mortal realm. Reality twisted like paper being crumpled. The cathedral's stained glass windows shattered outward, raining colored shards onto the São Paulo streets. The stone pillars cracked, ancient foundations groaning under the weight of divine presences that were never meant to exist in this dimension simultaneously. The congregation collapsed, not from fear, though terror was certainly present, but from the sheer psychic pressure of being near such concentrated celestial power. Their minds simply couldn't process it. They fell to the ground, unconscious, protected by their own fragile mortality from witnessing what came next. All except the three keepers, Father Catherine, Marcus, and Emily, remained standing through force of will and decades of training, even as blood trickled from their noses and their legs trembled. They had each prepared for this moment their entire lives. The moment when they might have to stand against a fallen angel with nothing but faith and borrowed prayers. "Protect them!" Azrael commanded, his voice resonating with frequencies that shook dust from the rafters. "Keep the congregation safe." The keepers moved immediately, using their bodies to shield the fallen mortals, spreading sanctified salt in circles, chanting words of protection in languages older than civilization. It wouldn't stop Ramiel if he truly wanted to kill them, but it might slow him down, might give them precious seconds. Ramiel laughed, the sound like thunder rolling through mountains. How noble, the harvester of souls, pretending to care about the living. His form towered above the altar, wings spread wide, each feather crackling with barely contained lightning. "You know what's funny, brother? I used to be like you, dutiful, obedient. I believed the lies they told us." "They weren't lies," Azrael replied, his own form coalescing into something more solid, more present. "The order serves a purpose. Death is not an ending, it's a transition. You knew that once." "And then I saw the truth." Ramiel's power lashed out, bolts of divine lightning that scorched the cathedral walls. Azrael deflected them, his essence absorbing the attacks like shadows swallowing light. "I watched humans for millennia, Azrael. I saw their potential, their creativity, their desperate, beautiful struggle for meaning, and I saw how we waste them, how we collect their souls and send them to an afterlife that no one truly understands. What if there's nothing there? What if we've been shepherding them into oblivion for all these ages? Then we've given them peace in their final moments. We've given them the comfort of believing something lies beyond. Is that not enough?" "No!" The word resonated with such force that more windows exploded and several pews burst into flames. "It's not enough. Not when we could give them eternity. Not when we could become what they need us to be. True gods, visible, present, undeniable." Azrael understood now. This wasn't just about power or rebellion. Ramiel had spent too long among humans, had grown too attached, had started to feel their fear of oblivion as his own. In trying to save them, he'd become the very thing that would destroy them. You can't save them by stealing their souls, Azrael said quietly. You can only trap them in your own fear. Better trapped in fear than lost in nothingness. Ramiel struck then, not with lightning, but with something worse. The 43 stolen souls he'd harvested, weaponized, their anguish turned into blades of pure torment. They shrieked as they flew through the air, ghostly forms twisted by weeks of imprisonment, their agony palpable. Azrael caught them, not deflected, not destroyed. He opened himself and took all 43 souls into his own essence, absorbing their pain, their confusion, their desperate need for release. It was like swallowing broken glass, each soul a wound in his being. But he held them, cradled them, began the work of untangling them from Ramiel's corruption. Foolish, Ramiel hissed. You can't process them all at once. They'll tear you apart from the inside. He was right. Azrael could feel his form destabilizing, the stolen souls writhing within him like acid, but he had no choice. To release them back to Ramiel would condemn them to continued torment. To send them unprepared into death would be to fail his most sacred duty. So he did the only thing he could. He showed them the truth. Within his essence, Azrael opened a window to what lay beyond death, not heaven or hell. Those were human concepts, simplifications of something far more complex. But the actual truth, a vast, warm darkness that was not empty but full of connection, of understanding, of every soul that had ever lived, joined in a tapestry so beautiful it could only be glimpsed, never fully comprehended. The 43 souls saw it and understood. One by one, they stopped struggling. Their anguish faded, replaced by wonder, then acceptance, then a joy so pure it radiated outward. They thanked him, actually thanked him, and then simply let go, transitioning at last into the peace they'd been denied. When the last soul faded, Azrael staggered, his form flickering. The effort had cost him greatly, but Ramiel had been watching, and for the first time, doubt crept across the fallen angel's face. What did you show them? The truth you've forgotten, Azrael replied, his voice weaker but steady. Death is not oblivion, it's not nothingness, it's completion. It's the final piece of a story that makes all the suffering worthwhile. You've been so afraid of the ending that you forgot to trust the author. No. But Ramiel's denial lacked conviction. No, I felt. You felt your own fear, brother, and you let it consume you. From the protective circles, Father Catherine's voice rose in prayer, not the formal Latin of the Church, but something older, words the order had preserved from the first humans who'd learned to speak of the divine. Marcus and Emily joined her, their three voices harmonizing in a chant that seemed to come from the stones themselves. The cathedral responded. Despite its broken windows and scorched walls, despite the cracks in its foundations and the flames licking at its pews, the building remembered why it had been built. It remembered faith, not the complicated political faith of institutions, but the simple, desperate faith of humans reaching towards something greater than themselves. That faith coalesced into light, not divine light, something humbler, more human, but no less powerful. It surrounded the fallen congregation, protecting them. It washed over the three keepers, strengthening them, and it pressed against Ramiel like a weight he could no longer bear. I wanted to save them, Ramiel whispered, his form beginning to crack. I wanted to give them eternity. You can't give what's not yours to grant, Azrael said, moving closer. But you can stop taking what was never yours to steal. If I stop, if I surrender, what happens to me? I don't know. That's not my realm. I only know death, not judgment. Ramiel looked around the cathedral, at the unconscious faithful, at the keepers still chanting, at the altar where he'd pretended to serve. I was happy here, he admitted. For a little while wearing this human face, serving these people, I felt purpose again, real purpose, not just following orders from an absent God. Then perhaps that was your true calling, Perhaps you fell not as punishment, but as opportunity, to serve humanity directly without the distance of divine decree. Can an angel fall upward? Ramiel asked with a bitter smile. Can we become more by becoming less? Before Azrael could answer, the ceiling exploded. Not from any attack, but from arrival. The arrival of other angels, sent at last by the higher council. They descended in formation, beings of light and purpose, their wings like swords, their voices like judgment. Ramiel the fallen, the lead angel proclaimed, you stand accused of theft of souls, corruption of divine purpose, and conspiracy against the eternal order. Surrender or be unmade. Ramiel looked at Azrael, desperation in his eyes. They'll destroy me. Send me to the void. Please, brother, you understand. Tell them I was trying to help. Azrael looked at the angels descending, looked at Ramiel, looked at the humans still chanting their humble prayers, and made a choice that would define him forever. No, he said to the host, you cannot have him. The lead angel's form flickered with surprise. Azrael, you dare interfere with divine judgment? I dare question it. Ramiel stole souls, yes, but he released them when confronted with truth. He can be redeemed. That is not your decision. Then whose is it? Azrael's power surged, his form expanding to shield Ramiel. An absent god who hasn't spoken directly in millennia? A council that ignored my calls for help when souls first started disappearing? No. If anyone has the right to judge what happens to stolen souls and the angels who take them, it's me. I am death. This is my domain. The tension in the cathedral stretched to breaking point. Divine beings on one side, the angel of death on the other, with a fallen angel caught between. The keepers had stopped chanting, watching in awe and terror. Finally, the lead angel spoke again, his voice careful. What do you propose? Ramiel serves humanity directly. No more disguises, no more stealing, true service. He uses his power to protect the dying, to ease their transitions, to work alongside me instead of against me. Under my supervision, he earns redemption. And if he fails, if he steals again, then I will personally unmake him. You have my oath on that. Long moments passed. Then, slowly, the host withdrew, ascending back through the broken ceiling, leaving trails of light in their wake. But their message was clear. Azrael had been granted this chance, but he would be held accountable for its outcome. When they were gone, Ramiel collapsed, his grand angelic form dissolving back into the shape of Father Miguel. He looked small now, human, exhausted. Why? He asked Azrael. Why protect me? Because I saw what you showed those souls, your fear, your doubt, your desperate hope that something better exists. And I realized those feelings don't make you fallen. They make you what we all should be, present, connected, real. The congregation was beginning to stir, their minds rebuilding the walls that protected them from divine truth. By morning, most would remember this as a vivid dream, a mass hallucination brought on by incense and candlelight. Only a few, those with the sight, those called to deeper understanding, would remember the truth. Father Catherine approached slowly, Marcus and Emily flanking her. What happens now? She asked. Now? Azrael looked at Ramiel, then at the keepers, then at the hundreds of sleeping faithful. Now we rebuild the cathedral, the order, the trust. And we do it together, angels and humans, working as we should have from the beginning. And the other fallen? Emily asked. Azrael mentioned more, others learning to steal souls. We'll find them. We'll offer them the same choice, redemption through service or oblivion through refusal. Azrael's form began to shift back toward his human guise. But we'll do it carefully, with compassion, because forcing obedience isn't divine, it's tyranny. Marcus grinned despite his exhaustion. So the angel of death becomes the angel of mercy? That's a hell of a character arc. I'm not merciful, Azrael corrected gently. I'm just finally learning what my true purpose is. Death isn't about taking, it's about completing. Every soul deserves a proper ending. Every story deserves its final chapter, and if that means standing against my own kind to ensure it, then so be it. As dawn broke over São Paulo, light streaming through the broken cathedral windows in colors made more beautiful by their imperfection, Azrael stood with his unlikely allies, a fallen angel seeking redemption, and 3 human keepers who'd bet their lives on hope. The invisible clock of the world continued its eternal ticking, marking countless births and deaths, beginnings and endings. But now, for the first time in his existence, Azrael understood something profound. He was not the last whisper. He was the first voice that greeted each soul as they completed their journey. The first presence that said, "Well done, you made it. You survived the beautiful, terrible gift of life, and now you can rest." And in that understanding, death became something it had never been before, kind. 3 weeks later, Azrael sat in a small cafe in Chicago, his borrowed human face weathered by experiences no mortal should have. Across from him, a woman in her 80s sipped tea with trembling hands, her destiny thread flickering like a candle in the wind. "I'm afraid," she told him, having sought him out through whispered recommendations from the Orders network, "of dying, of what comes next." "Tell me about your life," Azrael said gently. She did. For hours, she told him about her childhood in Mississippi, about the husband who'd loved her for 53 years before cancer took him, about her 3 children and 9 grandchildren, about regrets and triumphs, and everything in between. When she finished, tears on her weathered cheeks, Azrael took her hand. "You've earned your rest," he said. "And when the time comes, maybe tomorrow, maybe years from now, I'll be there. Not to take anything from you, but to help you let go. To show you that the ending is just as beautiful as everything that came before." "Promise?" she whispered. "I promise. Cross my heart." She smiled, and he saw her fear fade, replaced by something like peace. Later, walking through the city as humans rushed past him toward their own small infinities, Azrael felt something he'd never experienced in eons of existence. Purpose, real purpose, not just following orders or maintaining a system, but truly helping, making the unbearable bearable, transforming terror into acceptance. His phone, he had one now, provided by the keepers, buzzed with a text from Father Catherine. "Another disappearance in Tokyo. Could be another fallen angel. Are you ready?" Azrael typed back, "Always." Because he was ready, ready to face whatever came next, ready to protect every soul under his care, ready to stand between humanity and those who would exploit their greatest fear. He was Azrael, the angel of death, the last whisper of destiny. And for the first time in forever, he understood what that truly meant. Not the end of hope, but its guardian. Not the bringer of darkness, but the one who ensured that every darkness eventually gave way to light. He walked on through the city, invisible among millions, as the great clock of existence ticked forward. Birth and death, love and loss, joy and sorrow, all the threads weaving together into the vast tapestry of human experience. And wherever souls needed guidance, wherever the dying needed comfort, wherever the transition from life to what came next required a gentle hand and a whispered promise that everything would be okay, there, Azrael would be waiting, as he always had been, as he always would be, forever and ever, until the last star faded, until the final breath, until the end of all things. And even then, he suspected there would be more, because death was not an ending. It was simply the last whisper before the next great adventure began.